Hey everybody, brand new episode coming your way right here, right now, alongside Penguins head coach Dan Muse. I'm Josh Getzoff. Coach, always appreciate you taking some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You got it. When you look at your team right now, we'll just dive right into it. I think it's interesting because on the surface, you look at results, Penguins have points in 6 of their last 7 games. But I'm curious how you kind of process that when you see that stretch of games where you're picking up points, but maybe as you kind of glance a little deeper, you see that there are some points that probably could be had on top of what you've already accumulated.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely looking back, especially the last couple of games, and we have to find ways there to close out games and to get extra points. And so, I think each game's been a little bit different that way. It hasn't been just one thing, and so I think just that overall big picture in terms of defending a lead there towards the end of the third period. Our overtimes or shootouts continuing to work on those areas of our games, continuing to look at different things that we might be able to do in order to get those other points, because everything's tight right now in the league, and you see that, and so every point matters. I think the overall games that we're playing, there has been, especially the last couple, there's been a lot to like, but when you're leaving those points on the table, we're looking at ways, and we're going to continue to work on things there to enable us there to get the other point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you know better than anyone in the National Hockey League the goal is to win games, but obviously this is a team that's working their way towards becoming one of the top teams again in the National Hockey League. So for you and your staff's perspective, when you look at this situation and you see, yeah, you're getting points, but you also know from the players, the competitive perspective, it's like, man, we want to win the games. How do you measure what you just mentioned, the goodness in those games versus sometimes not getting the overall reward of the 2 points at the end of the night?
It's a step we have to take, which is, finishing those games off. And it has been a little bit different each time. And so, you can't just look at just one part of it. I think you got to look at, what are things that we can be doing there, late in the third period when we have a lead. Whether it's, just the tactical play, the different situations, it's not just in zone. Sometimes it's, the puck pressure, your neutral zone, the way you're defending lines, those things do become a little bit different there late in game, especially when the opponent there pulls their goalie. And so just making sure that we continue to clean up those details and look at things that, maybe we need to do a little bit differently too in those situations. And the same thing goes with overtime, same thing goes with shootouts. So something that we're looking at, we're going to continue to work on. And I think that's obviously a big next step that we have to take.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because you talk about working through it, and this is a part of the schedule once again after, I guess, a little bit of a lull there towards the end of November, where it slowed down a bit given the travel to and from Sweden and everything around that. It's right back in the busy season again now. I mean, you started last night a stretch of 4 games in 6 days that'll continue into next week, where it continues pretty much every other day going into the Christmas break. How do you guys utilize a situation where it's a lot of games that are going to be maybe the lesson teachings as opposed to the practice time that you had previously or the video sessions or whatnot? It's just every other day pretty much for the next 2 weeks.
You have to balance it because you don't really have much of an option there for practice. You come in, there's scheduled days off that we have on the calendar that we have to keep and we're going to keep, and then even those practice days that you have, when you get into a stretch like we're going into, they're not true team practices like you've had earlier in the year, or like you'll have there when the schedule's not as busy. And so we knew this stretch was coming. I think it's, you're turning the page, you're looking at the game, you're taking the things that you like, you're addressing the things that you don't, and you're quickly moving on there to the next one, because every opponent's also going to be a little bit different. And so you'll go from game to game, where some games are going to be it's a little bit more of that, tight and grinding, and other teams are going to be, it's more about speed. And so, we have to focus in on what we do each night and as the number one priority. But you also, it becomes, different challenges based on the opponent that you're having, and you got to be ready to turn that page pretty quickly and get ready for them.
The road to puck drop begins on Penguins Tonight. A first look at the latest game news, stories from around the league, and so much more. Penguins Tonight, 1 hour before every game on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by Morgan & Morgan.
Welcome back. Well, Coach, unfortunately, last night against the Anaheim Ducks, the shootout woes continue. I mean, you don't need me to tell you, but now the team 0-4 on the year in the shootout. How do you guys kind of work through, I don't know if it's a mental hurdle or a block when it gets to that situation, because the talent on this team has shown itself throughout the year, but it just seems like in that situation it's become a bit of an Achilles heel for you guys in the first quarter plus of the year.
Yeah, it's something we got to continue to look at, continue to work on. You know, I think you only have so much practice time, but it's an area you want to, put guys in a situation there where they're able to work on it. For both sides, for our shooters and for our goalies. And so, I think that's, I think if you put in the work there in practice, and in addition to, just what else can we be looking at? What else can we be doing? And there are things that we've looked at to. Whether you like them or not, it's a part of the game, and it's a way that you can get an additional point. And so those points haven't gone our way, and so it's something that we want to continue to look at, see what can we be doing differently, and continue to bring that information there to the group, and then also to provide the time to be able to work on it when we can. And so that's what we'll do. I think it's an area where we can get a point, so we got to work on it and get better.
Yeah, and you made some adjustments last night with Ville Koivunen and Tommy Novak in the reverse order, going on either side of Sidney Crosby. What kind of led you to choosing those two guys and changing up what's been pretty set as far as Letang, Rust, and Crosby, as far as your shooters are concerned?
Yeah, and those guys, the guys that have been used, you have they've done it in the past, and sometimes it's also just when it's not working, let's take a look at something different. And so that's what we wanted to do. Obviously, the results ended up being the same, and so we go back, and it's also, as I said, I think continuing to put guys in situations, even in practice, where we can get that opportunity to work on it, continue to look at different things, continue to work with them. Continue to maybe bring new ideas, and that's what we have been doing and will continue to do.
I mentioned Tommy Novak. That's been a real bright spot for you guys the last few games. There's been a lot of positives within the overall team game, as you mentioned, but he gets the promotion up with Brian Rust and Sidney Crosby a couple games back. His 2 games on the top unit now, he's gotten on the score sheet with points in back-to-back games, has points in 4 straight overall. When you think about making that move, what was it about Tommy's game that you felt complemented those two moving to the top line? And obviously the performance has been strong, but what stood out to you about how he's played since?
I think one of the big things, when we made that decision, to put Tommy with them and see those 3 together, was, the playmaking ability that he has. He has great poise with the puck. You see it as. You can see it, I think it really shows as he's coming into the offensive zone, and through the neutral zone, and just his ability he'll draw players to him. And sometimes he'll draw, because he can hold on to pucks. He can sometimes draw a duplication where 2 guys are going to him, which in turn is going to open up somebody else. Under pressure, he's very poised. He's got a really good defensive stick too. That's something that I think he doesn't get enough credit for. So even on the forecheck, or even kind of just in some broken play situations where pucks are 50-50, he does a great job of being able to get that puck back and in turn give us potential offense in transition. And so he's done a good job of getting to the net front lately. You saw that there in the Dallas game. He ends up making a great play, and then he's at the net, gets it rewarded with the tip goal. And so I think he's finding himself. In scoring positions, even tighter in the net right now, which I think has been one of the factors that's led to him, ending up on the score sheet more.
He's been in the lineup, obviously, for the majority of the season. One guy who's been out more recently was Noel Acciari. Comes back, as does Justin Brazeau in the game against Dallas on Sunday. Acciari, though, I wanted to ask you specifically about him because now with Blake Lizotte out, that line, though, of Lizotte, Dewar, and Acciari has been so good for you guys when they've been together. He, in particular, though, these last couple games since coming back, has been on the score sheet. The goal last night, first of the year. I know his game is not predicated at this point in his career. I know he had a 20-goal season earlier in his career, but maybe not offense the first thing you think of with him. But what does he bring that allows you guys to be successful with him in the lineup? Because reality is you played 15 games with him this year on your active roster in game, and you have points in 12 of them.
Yeah. Oh, he's he's been great, and I think it's for his game he's relied on a lot there on the defensive side, and he's done a really good job with that. Obviously, he's one of the guys that when he's been in the lineup, he's been a top penalty killer for us. He's a guy that is going to kind of do the dirty work. He's going to block shots. He's going to win puck battles. He's going to get pucks out. He's going to get pucks in, and he can also generate there just the way he gets in on the forecheck. He's always working, but he's also got a guy he has scored in the past, and so that's not a. It's not a huge surprise that he can chip in a little bit there offensively. You go back to the Dallas game, his first game back, he makes a great play, a great read there, just starting coming out of the zone, positions himself to get the puck, kind of takes a weird bounce, he stays on it though, those little details that really stand out with a guy like him. He kind of stops, keeps the play alive, sends it, it ends up being leading to Duer's goal there. And then, the game against Anaheim, just even off the face-off, it's kind of a scrum puck. It's nothing that's set, but he just, he wins that battle and he gets a puck to the net, and he gets rewarded, and we get rewarded. And so, those little details go a long way. But he's a guy that's done some really good things there, from the defensive standpoint. But he's also somebody who, you need that. You need some secondary scoring. So it was great to see him chip in that way.
Inside Penguins Hockey is back.
Let's go eat sushi.
For an all-new season.
And now he's your best friend.
Yeah. Getting a line in the water is always a joy for me.
Inside Penguins Hockey. New episodes every month on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by UPMC Health Plan.
Coach, one line that's gotten a lot of buzz since you put them together last Monday night in Philly is they're calling it the kid line of Rucker McGroarty, Ville Koivunen, Ben Kindle. The oldest guy on the line is Koivunen, and he's 22, so that puts a little perspective to just how young that trio is. But the Penguins are 2-0-2 since they've been put together. I know there's a lot more involved in that record, but when you think about what that group has given you, particularly Monday night against Anaheim, just a really effective offensive performance, it seemed at times. What do you like about the three of them together, and have they surprised you a little bit with how much they have provided?
Yeah, I think it's in line with what we were hoping for. I think you look at those three players, from their skill set, the way they think offense, the way they can read off of each other, move pucks. I think that was kind of the hope coming in, and so, that's what they've shown. There's been some of those games too. It would have been nice for them to maybe get a little bit more of a rhythm. I think in every game they've really started off well, and sometimes it's been a little bit more of, just the way the game has flowed. There's been a couple of those games where there's just been a lot of special teams. It's kind of broken up the 5-on-5 play, which sometimes can take away from your ability, but even within that, I think the guys have done a good job of, when we've gotten back to 5-on-5, being able to kind of pick things up where they left off. I think a lot of it ends up being not just the offensive zone, but even coming out of the zone, the way they're able to find each other, the way they're able to read space. I think they think in a similar way, and so it seems somewhat natural for them, just the way that they play off of each other and support each other. And then that leads into, I think, what probably really stands out for people is, the in zone play, where they can, they can really, I think, hem a team in and maintain puck possession. And I think, they've started to get it where it's gone from that puck possession to leading into getting chances. And, not to say they've had enough to rush to. I think their first game together, they literally come off the bench and they end up leading to a scoring chance. And so it's nice when you have a start like that too. You feel good about the line. You literally within, I think, 5 seconds of being on the ice together for the first time, I think they had a scoring chance. And so, but they built up that. And to their credit too, I think on the defensive side, when it has been time to defend, they've done a good job with that as well. I think that's something that's, all three of those players, have worked at, and it takes some time, in this league. Sometimes you're defending against some of the top players in the world, and so that structure piece and the detail has to be there. And I think all three of the guys have done a good job, just working on that part of it as well.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch them. To your point, Rucker McGroarty had that chance on that first shift in Philly. It would have been heck of a start for them together. Another kid that I wanted to ask you about, and I say kid because he's only 19, is Harrison Brunicke. And I do realize that I think that's been a once-a-show question for you since we started doing these back in October. But you mentioned before the game against Anaheim on Monday that he's going to be going to World Juniors with Team Canada. Just how do you kind of see this next little bit going for him with coming back to Pittsburgh from the conditioning assignment in Wilkes, which by all accounts sounded like it was a successful 5-game stint down there with the Baby Pens, but just getting ready to go to camp with Canada, and then obviously, hopefully for the Penguins, getting some great experience and just situational exposure minutes-wise for World Junior Championships.
Yeah, no, it's we're excited for him. It's a great tournament. It's great hockey. I think it's a situation too where you look at his years to date. He gets in a lot of game action, a lot of great experience there. Obviously, he has the conditioning stint there in Wilkes, which did go well, and and then that kind of led time-wise now into an opportunity that he earned to go and represent Canada and at World Juniors, and I think it's a great tournament, and the hockey's. It's really high level, and so we're excited, for him starting with the camp that he's going to, and then in the tournament. I think it'll be a great experience for him.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that, and we all can't wait to possibly see Brunicke versus Will Horkoff, two top Penguins prospects head-to-head there in St. Paul for the World Junior Championships. But I did want to ask you, speaking of Americans with Horkoff, U.S. defenseman Ryan Shea. This is a guy that, until he came to Pittsburgh a few years ago, had been a professional hockey player in the Dallas Stars organization, but had never played an NHL game. And you wouldn't know it based on how he's looked this year. I'm just curious for what you've learned about him, seemingly coming into camp with not really sure where he was going to slot in, but he really staked his claim in your top 4 of your defenseman group. And then since then has really seemed to only grow game to game.
Yeah. No, I think it really goes into like the back half of training camp. I think he really kind of took off, and he gained some separation and kind of earned that opportunity, which is a huge credit to him. But then you get to know him as a person, and it doesn't come as a surprise. I think this is a guy who, obviously, he just kind of kept working at it. He willed his way into the NHL, and then now he's taken on more, and he's earned that, and he's done a really good job with it. And so I think it's just now he's built as things have gone on, and I think it's been great to see. He's obviously in a lot of situations. He's playing more minutes than obviously he did last year, and so that sometimes it takes a little bit just to kind of get used to playing, more minutes, more situations. But he's done a good job with it, and yeah, big credit to him.
No one gets you ready for puck drop like Penguins Face Off Live. Pre-game insights, analysis, and a word straight from the coach. Penguins Face Off Live before every game on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Well, back to wind this thing down, and Coach, by the time we talk next on this show, whenever that is in a few weeks, Sidney Crosby very well could be the all-time points leader in Pittsburgh Penguins history. Still kind of crazy to say that out loud, but he's 5 points away now after the assist against Anaheim from tying Mario Lemieux. Do you sense any kind of, I know he's aware of it, but do you sense anything more with him as he gets closer and closer to this? I mean, you now have been around him every single day here for the last 3-4 months. You've gotten to know him really well. What's your gauge on how he's managing this moment?
My gauge is, he's the same every day. He hasn't changed. It seems like as you go through this year, it's creeping up on something, whether some sort of moving past somebody, and obviously this is a big one. Just amazing though when you see it, firsthand. You see it every day too. Just the way he comes to work, the preparation, the competitiveness, and I've said it before too. But it's you see him from afar for all these years, and then you get to see it firsthand, and then it makes total sense, why he's been able to do what he's done at such a high level for such a long time. And so, obviously, it's a big milestone that's coming up, but he just doesn't change the work that he puts in every day. It doesn't change the competitiveness, just that want to scratch and claw for some way to get a little bit better. Pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, one of my favorite things just around the NHL now is a lot of these young players will come in and who's your favorite player? And it's almost always Sidney Crosby. 38 years old, he's been around, this is his 21st season. But a lot of those players that said that are now starting to come play against him. And we saw a few even last night. I know Beckett Seneca really looked up to him and got to go head-to-head with him with the Ducks. Now you got the Montreal Canadiens coming in here. A couple guys that you know from the U.S. National Development Program, and Cole Caulfield and Lane Hudson, and then obviously Nick Suzuki is another name. Ivan Demidov kind of jumped onto the scene last year. Saturday it's Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini and Dylan Gunther and the Utah Mammoth here on Sunday. What's your gauge on just this young movement of talent in the National Hockey League? That's not just these young kids getting an opportunity, but I mean, in the case of guys like Celebrini, they're at the top of the league in scoring too. They're genuine Hart candidates here through almost a half of the season.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty amazing to see. It's there definitely is this wave, coming up right now. Some, really young players, that kind of 23, 22 and younger, that aren't just playing in the league, but they're making a massive impact in the league, and so. It's an exciting time right now in the NHL. Like when you see the guys, you see a guy, like Sid and Gino, and the guys have been doing it for 20 plus years, and they're still going at such a high level, at the top of the league in different categories. And then you also have, the young guys that are coming in, and they're also right up there, and that kind of next wave, and it's. The skill set that's coming in, though, is just incredible. And, I had an opportunity to see it kind of firsthand, too, just, working with USA Hockey at the NTDP. And, it's the players that you coach there, that you see there, and then also some of the players that you're coaching against, in the international play. And, it's a high skill set. It's a high offensive, IQ. I mean, I think there's a lot of confidence with these kids too. I think they really believe in themselves, and they come in here and they show it there in their game and what they've been able to do. And so, it's an exciting time in the league overall. Yeah,
so some big games for the Penguins on tap, and some big names on the younger side, but they're future household names, if not already, across the NHL in town for those as well. Coach, always appreciate your time. We'll talk again sometime around the Christmas holiday, but thanks again for doing this, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, that's Pens coach Dan Muse. Again, the Penguins will return to action. Montreal Canadiens here on Thursday night, 6 o'clock on the pregame, 7 o'clock puck drop. You can watch on SportsNet Pittsburgh or listen on the Penguins radio network. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Good night.